Good morning and welcome to Raw Vlog number 37. Raw Vlogs are recorded in front of a live steering wheel on my way to getting my coffee delivered straight from the camera to you, raw and unsanctioned. Today's Raw Vlog, we're going to be talking about basically being an uncool noob. We've definitely got some general mountain biking news to get through, so I'm going to just jump right into it. Our channel news this week is, I don't know, I'll tell you what the Monday video is going to be. It's going to be a weird kind of repeat of last Monday's episode, except at Greer and all packed into one day. Went up there and rode with Tony and Katie. Kelly was out that day, and then later in the day ran into or met up with Spencer and Jonas again, and then they introduced me to a couple of new people. That was a rad day. I haven't really put together a Stoke of the Week, other than that. Actually, here's my Stoke of the Week. Stoke of the Week! Stoke of the Week this week is my hand has finally started to show more strength. When I go to OT, they measure my strength, you know, grip strength and all that kind of stuff, pinch strength, and it's been plateaued for a while, and we couldn't really figure out what was going on because I do CrossFit, I do kettlebell swings, I do deadlifts, I do all this stuff. Why wasn't my grip strength growing up? Weren't really sure. We thought maybe it was a ligament tendon kind of thing, but it's the numbers are starting to go up. We had a pretty big jump since the last time we measured, so pretty stoked on that. So that's a Stoke of the Week. New segment for today is general MTB news. As you all know, and everybody's talking about, the new HECKLER is out from Santa Cruz, the Santa Cruz's first e-mountain bike, and people were going crazy and saying like, oh, they said they were never gonna do it, and everybody's tripping out about Santa Cruz making an e-mountain bike because we had this kind of impression of, you know, Santa Cruz almost being anti, or for whatever reason, we just kind of had this impression about that. So I wanted to like dig into that a little bit. A couple of specs that I haven't heard anybody talking about. I mean, it's available to do a little bit of math, look at the internet and do a little bit of math, but I've had people responding about the HECKLER and being like, it's so freaking expensive. So I did a little math and I looked at the Bronson X01 build, and then I looked at the HECKLER X01 build. And the difference between the two is about 2,300 bucks. So yes, the HECKLER X01 build is like 10,600 bucks, which is a big number for a bicycle. But compared to the Bronson, same build, it's 2,300 bucks. And we're also talking it, you know, the carbon CC X01 build Bronson with the reserve wheel upgrade, because the HECKLER, they all come with the no, they don't. The X01 build comes with the reserve. They also come with the reserve DH wheel. I don't know if that costs more, but 2,300 bucks for a motor for the e-bike. So I don't know if it's really, like, if you look at the whole lineup, is it that much more expensive, or does that 2,300 bucks make sense because it's an e-bike? People are really comparing it to the Bronson and saying, you know, the geometry is pretty much the same. I looked at it, and there are adjustments to the geometry which are kind of similar to, like, if you compared it to like a Nomad or something, where the numbers, like the differences in the numbers, are in the same kind of range. It's like almost 2 inches longer, its wheelbase. That being said, I'm assuming like all those geometry changes in connection with the additional weight and dynamics and whatnot has made it so that everybody's saying it rides very similar to the Bronson. But yeah, people have also said, you know, like I was talking about before, like the Santa Cruz, that Rob Roskop had made a statement that we will never make an e-mountain bike. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I did some looking around the internets, and the only thing I could find is, and like, I don't know, maybe it was 2016, 20 something like that. It was an interview quite a ways ago when I think like the EWS was just getting started and fat bikes were becoming a thing at that time. And his statement that I found was Santa Cruz will never make a fat bike, and I think that has been misquoted pretty regularly, and transformed into we will never make an e-mountain bike. So please let me know in the comments if you have access to that interview where maybe he did say that, but that's all I could find. So yeah, people have also said, you know, like, well, when the people that own them, which is Pond, when Pond tells them to make an e-mountain bike, that's when they're gonna do it. And in a recent interview, I think Pink Bike did it, Roscop was talking about when Pond bought them, that was one of the things that they talked about, and they had responded by saying basically like they will make one when it seems right to them, because the statement generally that Santa Cruz makes is that they make mountain bikes that they want to ride. So yeah, I mean, and I guess what I'm getting at is there's a lot of, I think, misconceptions like floating around on the internet, and it's not that hard to like find out about these things, or at least hear from the people that we're talking about. You know, mostly people are talking about statements that they've heard from Rob Roscop, and yeah. So look up that interview. I think it's on Pink Bike, and actually I think the old one about fat bikes, or where he makes the fat bike statement, is on Pink Bike too. I don't know. Let me know. One thing about the Heckler that I found interesting, and I don't know, it just kind of piqued my interest, was the handlebar that they're making specifically for that bike that has the little hole in the groove so you can run the computer cable through the handlebar. And my initial thought was like, whoa, what if we could do that with like our brake lines and stuff? But then I don't know how well that would really work. Anyway, that was my initial thought, and I was just gonna talk about it and be like, oh, I want to maybe try that with one of those handlebars and see if I can. But then the more I thought about it, the more, like, actually as I was saying this, I was like, I don't really know if that would work. I don't know if you've seen that where people are running their cables through their handlebars and having it work, at least the brake hoses. Yeah, so let's get into our subject for this week. Actually, one bit of channel news that I forgot. You might have noticed in the intro that I didn't say I was getting my Friday morning coffee, and that's because right now it is Thursday, and I'm gonna start recording these on Thursday. They're still gonna be unedited, they're still gonna be raw, but recording them on Friday and then like posting them up on Friday it's made my Friday mornings. Yo, dude! Sorry, that was my buddy Matt, one of the best dudes in the world. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, so recording these on Thursdays, because recording them on Friday and then like getting to the coffee house, and then like I still need to like down render them a little bit so that they're not like huge file sizes, so that I can upload them from the coffee house while everybody else is on the Wi-Fi there, and then trying to get it like up and the descriptions written and all that stuff on Friday morning while still trying to get to work on time. It's been hectic. So I'm gonna try this out. I'm gonna start recording these on Thursday, but they will still release them on Friday, unless you think I should start releasing them. No, I'm not gonna release them on Thursday, because that's counter to what I'm trying to do. That way I have like this evening, I can set it up, I can upload it, I have time to do that, and I can schedule it to release on Friday morning. So you'll still get them on Friday mornings. It just means my life will be a little less hectic. This is generally a pattern that I'm doing in my life this year around the YouTube channel and in general, trying to find ways to still be able to produce the same amount and quality of content and have the same things in my life and the same quality of my life, but also reducing the kind of craziness that I've built into my life. So hope that's okay with you. If it's not, you will become okay with it. It's okay. These won't change. it just is, you know, just makes it better. It also may mean we can make it a little bit longer, because I'm not trying to like rush to get into the coffee house and get all this like rendering and uploading and stuff going. Anyway, we're so far in, we're 10 minutes in, and now we're gonna get to our subject matter, which is being an uncool noob. So, what's got me thinking about this is riding with new riders and seeing new lines, seeing people do stuff and opening my eyes to things. But also, I've had conversations recently that have reminded me about moments in the past around mountain biking where I thought I understood something, or I basically heard something and was like, what? WTF? Like, how can that be? And it started me thinking about how our habits and our general understanding are often the thing, in a lot of cases, they're the major thing that gets in the way of new knowledge, of new understanding, and new habits. So, I was having a conversation with a friend about forks and how they work, and how there's like an air leg, and then there's like a oil circuit damping leg. And it reminded me of when I realized that there wasn't air in both legs, and it took me a while to like be like, oh, how can that be? And like, isn't it gonna bounce one way? Or like just kind of tripping out on that. And let me unpack that a little, because you know, that moment of me like resisting that information, right? I was resisting the information that there's only air in one side. That was based on a general, broad, basic understanding that if you have two chambers with air in them, right, and you bounce them, you bounce the bouncy sticks, they will, and they have the same amount of air pressure, they will bounce, you know, relatively the same. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, when two things are the same. I hate when I lose a word. Yeah. In any case, so yes, okay, that's the thing. But what my knowledge didn't take into account was the whole structure of a fork and how they're built, and how actually trying to integrate a damping circuit, or first of all, you need a damping circuit in any kind of suspension. So that wasn't part of my understanding at the time. And then to try to build a damping circuit inside or whatever in the same tube as a air chamber, your spring chamber, well, I mean, we have the lefty that does that. But to do that, first off, is like a whole engineering project, which Cannondale took on. But imagine doing that in two legs. So you'd have two air chambers, two compression circuits, or damping circuits. Like, that's just insanity, and it's a bunch of craziness. So once I had that additional understanding, the idea that there are going to be air chambers in both legs, that becomes ridiculous. So the thing that was initially ridiculous was only ridiculous because of my lack of understanding, and that seeming ridiculous was what was in the way, at least for a moment, of me understanding the actual stuff. And I think like we experience this just generally when we come across something that just doesn't jive with with our current model of the world, of reality. I see this a lot of the times riding with new riders, where there's just a certain way to ride a feature, and then you see somebody ride it a different way, and you're like, I love it because it's just this moment of like, what the heck? It's like all that thing about the fork, right? It's that mental journey of the fork that happens like in a moment. I was riding with Tony at Greer, and there's this one like kind of big sweeping turn, and there's this big rock kind of on the inside of the turn, and to me that was always an obstacle to like avoid, to go around. I mean, you were turning around it, and following him, he like straight lined it and just turned that big rock as a jump. And now I see it in the footage, and I'm like, oh, it's a freaking jump. And yeah, so I experienced that compressed what the heck moment, and then realization. But you know, a lot of times we are forced into those where, you know, we have a lot of resistance to it and there's a delay before we have that understanding. And then, you know, the worst case scenario is you never come to that understanding and you walk around with a skewed version of the world. And what's sad about that is it can just cause continual frustration where you're like finding yourself going like, why the heck is it that way? And one thing that I've been trying to get back to is just having the noob brain. It just kind of opens me up to seeing things in a different way. So like my vision of things, my understanding of things isn't just like so locked down, because in the end, like whatever understanding we have is pretty small. It's you know, even if you've had years and years of experience in mountain biking, that's still your experience. That's still like n=1. And yes, you've got shared experience coming from other people and information coming from other people, but you're still dealing with your own filters and your own processing systems on how you take in that information. So I'm a child of the 90s, and we always, you know, at the time we talked about finding your inner child, and that got a little, there was cheese involved in that. Nothing wrong with cheese. I love me a good Gruyere. But point being, well, the thing that I kind of pull out of that is that that noob brain, like coming at things like you've never seen it before. So you can do that on the trail. You can do that with new technologies. I know, like when any bike company comes out with something new, a lot of the times our reaction to it is like, why a new thing? My response is curiosity. I'm like, well, why a new thing? Like, what is the story with this thing? And I want to know about it. And I find that generally reduces the amount of like stress and frustration and just general hate in my life by just being curious. Also, I think with that noob brain, it can make things a lot more fun. I was thinking back to my first season up at Snow Summit, going back to the old Specialized rock hopper, bunch of bananas helmet on my head, and some like on sale Troy Lee Designs red shorts and no pads, some, you know, road biking gloves, or I don't know, like that's what I look like, some glasses, total squid, and also having a buttload of fun. Like I would go up, I remember, I think the first few weekends I went up there, I only rode Going Green. And if you don't know, Going Green is the green trail, and it's kind of off the backside. It's still lift access, which is nice because you can just do laps on laps. But I could go ride that trail. There wouldn't be a lot of people on that trail, but I got to know that trail really well, and I just had so much fun on that 29er XC hardtail, not knowing any better, and probably because I didn't know any better, right? So sometimes knowing better can ruin your day. You can go up with that knowing better mindset, and then you start going into like judging and ranking, and you know, you'll see people and you're like, oh, that person's wearing that helmet and they're riding that bike, and you know, that takes up that part of your brain. So by staying in that kind of noob brain and being curious about things and being open to things, it means like you're not kind of accessing that part of your brain so much, especially out on a day riding, and just makes that day so much more fun. I know I've seen, you know, I've talked about this before, where I've seen a rider on the trail, and if I were in that like ranking and judging mode, they would look like, you know, a total squid, a total noob, but then once we get going on the trail, they turn out to be a ripper. Somewhat related. Basically, I'm saying stick into that noob brain. But how do you do that? I mean, how do I do that? One of the things that I try to do is be curious, is just stay curious. So I guess maybe that's kind of what I was trying to talk about with that, seeing that person that looks like a squid, is, you know, be curious about that person. If you happen to have the opportunity to talk to that person, or just kind of the situation puts you in that moment, you know, what's their story, you know, because we're all humans, we all have backstories, and so just being open and curious about that. Same with the trails, being curious. I think slowing down can help too, especially when we're on trails that we know, when we're going at that trail speed. Super fun, I love it, but it's hard to, when you're going, you know, 20 miles an hour down a trail, it's hard to go, well, maybe what would I do here, right? So riding those trails slower, I've kind of learned that sometimes by riding behind somebody who's more of a beginner or less experienced than me, and slowing down for them and seeing new things on the trail, stopping. So slowing down, being curious. What else? It seems like we need 3. 3 is always a good number. I'm just kind of self-investigating what I normally do. For me, getting goofy kind of helps too, like just generally, you know, this is gonna seem totally unrelated, but this is what's popping into my head. This is raw, you're gonna have to deal with it. I was, for whatever reason this morning, the cat was on the bed doing her thing, and I just, for whatever reason, imagined she had pants on. She was wearing furry pants, and yeah, I know, I was just being goofy, but like exercising that part of your brain really just kind of opens it up and lets you see things that you wouldn't normally see. So yeah. Be a noob. Don't worry about being cool. Be an uncool noob. Hope you dug this raw vlog. A little bit longer than normal because I have a little bit more time. I'm a little bit more relaxed because I know I don't have to like rush into there and like make all this stuff happen. So if you dug this video, hit that like button. More content from the MTB ALAN channel every Monday at 5 p.m. Hit that subscribe button. Also check to see if you're subscribed. I know there's a number of you who have commented and I've responded to, and I've checked and you're not subscribed. So do check to see if you're subscribed. If you're not, hit the subscribe button. I'll show up in your feed and you'll be supporting the channel. Hope you dug this. See you next week.